Connors nodded. Exactly. I made that statement so you would ask me a question. I didn't just blurt that out for nothing. I want you to ask me about my day so I can tell you all about it. It was my real agenda, my hidden agenda, my motive, my secret plan. As a leader, you need to be able to see things like this to avoid getting your team into a bad situation. With me so far? Yeah, I get it. Here's another example. I have a squad of villains, and I take a few shots at your team and then retreat. At some point, my squad stops to fight. What's going on? You're leading us into a trap. I mean, why else would you engage, retreat, and then engage unless it's to your advantage? Exactly. That's the kind of thing a great leader sees. He learns to think like the villain and find his secret motive. Is there always a secret motive? Yes, always. The villain has had a long time to make up a plan. The plan is never what it seems, and there are always things you don't expect. Learning to expect those things and see their plan for what it is, that's what will carry your team to victory. I'll remember that. Do you have something that I could use to study that kind of stuff with? Darkspeed asked. I have case studies that we could go over together, if you have the time, Connors offered. I could maybe free up an hour a night. How about every other night? Spend some time bonding with your teammates. My teammates just kicked my butt at pool. She? Connors asked. How did you know? Shogun used to do the same thing. Connors went across the room to get some papers. History really does repeat itself. With that in mind, I have a few case studies on supervillains. I'll explain what they did at first in detail. You try and think of why they did it. That sounds good, Darkspeed said. Cosmos and Glimmer were in the pit practicing with dull swords. Cosmos was sweating hard as he tried to keep up with Glimmer. You were right about knowing what you're doing. If you had my speed, I don't think I would be doing so well, Glimmer said. Give me a few years, Cosmos said as he was catching his breath. Why? What happens in a few years? I'll be faster than you. Unless you get even faster during that time. What do you mean? Connors was telling me that my stats were going up about 1 point every 5 weeks. I should be at 8 norms pretty soon, maybe in 1 or 2 weeks. Glimmer looked genuinely interested. How long does that keep up? He said just less than 20 years. 20 years? I know, I'll be 30 or more. How does Connors know this? Cosmo stopped to think about how to say what he had to say. Glimmer, if someone asks me not to say something and I give my word, I understand. Maybe someday you can tell me. You're not mad? I was raised by a stealth. There is a time to tell someone something and a time to keep things to yourself. Still, that's 10 points a year for close to 20 years. In the end, you could end up with about 200 norms of speed. That's kind of what I got from it. Did this sword session help? Cosmos asked. It did, but instead of sparring next time, I think I just need tutoring on my form and techniques. And your light powers. If you can get them that strong, you should really develop them. I'm sure you'd make your father happy. Your mother said you should study a foreign language. Are you going to make her happy? Glimmer asked. We should start tomorrow. Right now, I have to get back to the dorm. Give me a ride back? Glimmer asked. Virtuoso was sitting in the common room of First Team dorm. She was enjoying the quiet of the room she designed. Lights out would not happen for another half an hour, and she assumed she would have another few minutes of peace. Cosmos opened the door to see Virtuoso reclining on one of the couches in the opulent room. I'm glad you're still up. Do you have some time to talk? Cosmos asked. Virtuoso righted herself and found it in her to be cheerful. Sure, what do you want to talk about? Do you know as much about super DNA as Bioforce does? I know what I know, and I can always read her mind from here to check and see if she knows something I don't. What did you want to know? Why did it seem so important to... I guess we start at... Can you tell me what a breeder is? Sure, breeder is a slang term for a super that sees their potential mate in terms of what kind of children they would have. Kind of like centuries ago, a person of noble birth would want to marry someone of equal or greater status. There are more breeders in the superhero community than anyone would ever admit to. Olympian is one of the few who is just bold about it. What happens if you marry someone with less power than you or no power? Let's use superhero A as our example, and let's say he has flame powers at an 8 rating. Then let's say he marries a normal human. Their children would have his power at a rating of 3 to 5, most commonly a 4. It's like it could go 1 over or under the halfway point. When supers marry supers is when it gets interesting. You want to know that too? Sure. Same superhero A marries a girl with TK at a rating of 6. According to what I told you, what would the most likely result be in their children? Cosmos thought it an easy question. Half of both of the powers. Flame powers at a 4 and telekinesis at a 3. That would seem like the answer, but it's wrong. Usually, not always, it works out like this. They get both. The child would have flame powers at 7 to 9 and TK at 5 to 7. That's what the breeders are looking for, someone that will add to their own strengths. Now, in mismatched supermarriages, the results can be different. Virtuoso started speaking with her hands as well as her words. A flame power 10 marries TK1. The result would be a reduced flame power, but an increased TK. Think a result like flame power 6 and TK4. The Omni power gives you like a dozen powers that will approach an infinite level. It's theorized that a half Omni child with the super would retain over half the Omni power, and the powers inherited from the super would be magnified thousands of times. That's what Olympian meant when he said what he said about me. What? Why did you say theoretical? Cosmos asked. No Omni has ever had children. We don't know if they pass on any of their powers. Cosmos wanted to tell her what he was thinking, but knew he couldn't. Instead, he went to the refrigerator for something to drink. Thanks, I didn't know that. Were you going to say something? Virtuoso could tell something was wrong. No, it's just a lot to think about. No, it's more than that. I've seen enough people try to hide something that I know when they're not telling me something they know. What is it? There's nothing. Your poker face stinks. I can so tell you're lying to me. Was it something Connors told you about Omni? No, there was nothing, Cosmos said with his best purposeful straight face. You know something about the first Omni, don't you? What is it? What did he tell you? Cosmos could tell she had something in mind. Why? What are you thinking? If I tell you and I'm right, you have to say so. Agreed? Virtuoso asked. Okay. I think Manchester Jack might be Omni's son. That's the only explanation for him having all of Omni's powers at such a high level. Remember what Miss Waldron said about Manchester Jack being noticed by the HU at 14 years of age in 1975? That would put his birth year at 1961. Omni was in London putting the headquarters together from 1958 to 1962. I have to think it's not a coincidence. Cosmos was stunned as he looked at Virtuoso. I never put those things together. And remember, Omni chose Manchester Jack to be his right hand in almost everything. So, is that what you knew? Not even close. I was just trying to wrap my head around everything you told me. So Connors might be Omni's kid? That would be news. Who else thinks that might be true? Hannah and Jet think that might be the case, especially Jet, Virtuoso said. Why does Jet think so? The way her father talks about Connors. He has seen him in real action on a mission that he helped the Tokyo team with. Shogun thought his power was incalculable. That could only come from him being an Omni or him being the child of an Omni. I'm just putting dates and places together to make my guess. So if I married a super, and I do mean if, and I mean way in the future, my kids might be like Connors? I'm not sure. We don't know what kind of super his mother was. This is a lot to think about. I'm going to get to bed before the others come home. Cosmos headed for his room. Don't let this breeder thing get you down. With all I've read, it's a natural thing. Easy for you to say. No, really. Throughout time, love has been influenced by what a person is or has. A king never had to look far for girls who liked him because he was a king. A supermodel never has to look far for boys who fawn over her looks. To a lesser extent, girls are more likely to date the boy in the band or the man that offers security. Guys do the same thing when they try to get the prettiest girl as a trophy. Both will try to please their families by picking someone else from a good family or from the same religion. I know from reading John John's mind that his family would disown him if he brought anything but a Christian home. Jet's under pressure to make sure she pleases her family with her pick. Why are you telling me this? Not everyone gets as much freedom with their choices as you will. Some of them might have sour grapes. I don't want anyone to get you down about Glimmer. She likes you, red shirt and all, Omni and all. If you like her, don't let anyone make you feel bad. I'll remember what you said. I have to get to bed.